So Kiara, you want to introduce yourself? The author of 4 books and whatever.
Well, maybe the best way to introduce myself is mention that Peter and I have known each other for decades now in Mount Shasta.
You were living on Mount Shasta in a yurt.
Yes, that's the first place up in Morningstar in Teddy's yurt. And that was in 1991. But the last time we met, before this last time, was in Switzerland. Was when we were both in the same bookshop or book light center, I think it was. And you had just finished doing a workshop there with your new book, Adventures of a Western Mystic. And I showed up there, I saw the sign and said, "Oh, Peter, you have to meet." And then I was just publishing one of my books. I forget which one, maybe Year Zero. And so then you came, and then you introduced me and said something, and then we shared stories. I mean, these events are significant.
Sure, they are. Yeah.
So I feel like we've been on this cutting edge of the ascension journey for ourselves and for the planet, for humanity. And Peter, your life is just, it's all about serving the masters and following the stream of evolution. And it's been an honor and joy to share that with you.
Sure.
Shasta.
Well, I feel we have to kind of go beyond the old paradigm, that India is famous for people finding, enlightenment and the oneness, but I think mastery in the world is even a step beyond that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To have the awareness of the one and to master the ego, but to still know how to be in the world, be in relationship with people, and be in business and, things like that. That's more difficult even,
Right. You can't go hide in a cave anymore.
That's right. I mean, I met yogis that they didn't need, maybe they slept 2 hours a night. They didn't maybe only eat once every couple of weeks, and they didn't age, but they couldn't be around women. They just were terrified of women. That was they blamed women as being temptresses, but it was their own repressed desires,
Yeah.
So that's not mastery.
Yeah. No, that's been the curse of Indian gurus this last 50, 60 years, because it's like coming out of complete seclusion and that, the very strict ascetic path into a world where suddenly you're encountering women, you're encountering the world of money, you're encountering fame and people, falling at your feet. What do you do with all that? The ego hasn't had a chance to find itself in resonance with the soul. And suddenly it's like goes out of control. So I think that's a huge lesson for all of us right now to what is mastery.
Yeah, I had been in India twice. I had, 2 trips to India and met some very high beings. And then I met Saint Germain, and he sent me to Mount Shasta. And I came here to ascend, and I went up on the mountain. My teacher Pearl said, "Well, you should ask for guidance first." Because, the Indian yogis, they could just leave their body when they want. And I thought, well, I'll do that too. So I went up on the mountain and prayed what to do. And these 2 masters in white robes appeared, and they said, "We want you to get into real estate." So I interpreted real estate as a higher dimension was my real estate, But then they also introduced me to a man. They said then he would show me the next step. Well, a couple of weeks later, I actually met that man. He came into the health food store where I was working behind the counter. And he said, "Are you interested in real estate?" And then he showed me houses, and I was really guided to fix up old houses and rent them out and be a landlord. And that was not at all what I wanted, but I knew nothing about the business world. And how am I going to help people in business if I don't understand what they go through,
Right, right.
So I was, in that for a few years, really. And it was quite a lesson, I could be high in meditation, but what if a tenant is not paying the rent? How do I deal with that? In an equitable way without getting into arguments and fights or bad feelings and things like that. That was quite a lesson.
I read this quote from Rumi where he says there's 3 stages of enlightenment. The first stage is when you're identified as a drop of water, seeking and searching for this ocean. And gradually, you start loosening up, letting go of your personal ego, you join the great ocean, you become one with the sea, and that's enlightenment. And for many people, that's the pinnacle. But then he says, no, there's a third stage. And that's when the ocean enters into the drop. That's what you're talking about, embodiment, and really living that unity consciousness in the world amongst people.
Householder.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Descension.
Yeah, I always joke, I gotta write a book, How to Be a Descended Master.
Right. Yeah, that's it.
That's a good book title.
Yeah.
Well, there have been many great masters in recent history, like from the lineage Paramahansa Yogananda's lineage. Sri Yukteswar and Lahiri were both householders. And I think they were sending that message, that it's time to bring that divine consciousness into the world and into our daily activities. And even Yoganandaji's life was spent in ceaseless activity throughout the United States and all around the world. And maybe in a way that's a little bit of a roadmap for us to look at and say, perhaps that's what this age is about, about no longer secluding or cloistering to be living a spiritual life, but to be immersed in the in everything, the relationships, the responsibilities. Can I ask you a question, Peter?
Sure.
What role do you see for the disciple-guru relationship in this age or in this modern day, if it's no longer, being out in the forest, secluded with the master, learning from, disciple to guru? How do you see that relationship in this modern day?
Well, the real function of the guru should be to put you in touch with your own guru, your inner guru, the inner self, which is the ultimate guru, or what I call the I am presence, or the Atman, which is the ultimate guru. And any human guru is only a reflection of that, And if a guru is really successful, you won't need the guru after a while. Once you realize you have a guru, everyone on earth has a guru, but the guru doesn't need to be there physically all the time. It's like if you have children and they're playing in the backyard, you can hear what's going on and kind of sense that they're okay. But now and then you could hear someone fell and is hurt. You have to go out there. And it's kind of like that of the ascended masters, the 7 main Chohans of the rays were all in one of their ashrams. And, we don't need to see them every day or every week or whatever, but they can send people into our lives or books or something to provide the next step in our path, without having to see them personally. So we're not really alone at all. And frequently something happens to separate you from the guru. It could be even the death of the guru, or there's a falling out somewhere. That happened with my teacher, Pearl. She thought I did something that I didn't do, and it caused a big kind of tumult, in the town. And then eventually she realized she made a mistake and she apologized, but that ended that like kind of guru-disciple relationship. Then we became more friends, or colleagues type of thing. But I picked up a book during that time. I was in a bookstore and this book by Alice Bailey sort of jumped off the shelf. I mean, not literally, but I was really drawn to it. And I flipped it open and it said, every disciple at some point will be separated from the guru, and every guru will feel, in a sense, betrayed by the disciple, something like that, that eventually that has to end so you can find the inner guru,
Yeah, in the Sufi tradition also, it was part of the initiation of any chela. So the master would literally kick the sheikh. If not, he wasn't a sheikh then, but he. But before they took the highest vows, they would be kicked out of the community, and they would have no idea why this was happening. They would have to go through their own dark night of the soul, until finally they came to terms with that inner guru. Then they went back into the community, and then they could be a sheikh, a teacher. So, recognize that this is part of the stages that we all go through.
Exactly. And this is kind of, it's kind of a point in the book, the Violet Tara book that I wrote. It's a tantric Buddhism, or Vajrayana, a Tibetan term, Vajrayana Buddhism, which is actually a part of other religions, but they call it something different, where you visualize the deity in front of you, or the guru, and then you merge with them, and then you feel you become that being, you become the deity. Now, with some people, it's Mother Mary, or Jesus, or could be Padmasambhava, whoever it is. You really worship them. You make until they become. You see that picture in front of you is not just a picture; it's the actual being. Then you close your eyes and you feel them, their heart merge with your heart. And then you feel, I am that. Then you do the work that they're doing. You imagine yourself over the earth sending rays of enlightenment down to humanity, Then in the end, you dissolve that. But gradually, you merge with that consciousness. If you can, do it from the emptiness, not from the ego saying, oh, I'm Padmasambhava, or, I'm Jesus, you do it from the place of total absence of ego, so that's a really profound teaching, I think. I met some monks on Mount Athos in Greece on my way to India, and they were so beautiful. I thought, why am I going to India? I'll just ask these guys, so I did. I said, could you share your path with me? What do you do? And they said, we have one prayer that we do. May the heart of Christ be everywhere known. And, you've probably seen that picture of Jesus where he opens his chest, and so they said, we see that heart in everyone, including ourselves. We meditated on it in ourselves and everybody we meet. we treat as though they had the heart of Jesus within them. And boy, they were really luminous beings, So, Tibetans might use Padmasambhava, or nuns might use Mother Mary,
Right. So
that puts you in touch with the ultimate guru, which is really your higher self, or your, not the higher self, your true self.
yeah, you start with an external form and then it becomes your own internal.
Yeah, exactly.
So Peter, I've been writing this series of books now.
Yeah.
It's a trilogy on Isa. Isa. So Isa is the name
Oh,
that Jesus went by.
right.
And so it's it's a story of Jesus and his travels in India
Great.
before and after the missing years, and what he met along the way, the teachings, the original teachings from the Himalayas, from the Nath tradition. And it's, it was completely distorted when he went to Palestine because people were not ready for it. And so when he says that I and the Father are one, or I am the way, the truth, and the life, he's referring to that universal self. But they took it as the personal self. And so, of course, that was blasphemy. That was, But he said, in the Persian tradition, there was a prophecy of the son of the sun. So the son of the solar deity, and it referred to one who could understand what this was about and unite with that sun. But he was also, so Isa was saying, we are all sons of the sun, sons and daughters of one. And I think that message is now coming back. And so through writing this series of books, I'm also, looking at some of the manuscripts from Eastern traditions, from the early Christian church in India, even from the Vatican, because so much buried in the vaults of the Vatican that is now so it's presenting a completely new version of the story. And so what was happening for me is I would sit down. So I went through all of that, and then I would sit down and just let it come, early mornings.
Beautiful.
Just become a living experience for me. And then that led to the 3 books. So 2 of them just got published. One I'm in the middle of writing now. What I find is that in writing these books, I'm connecting with the spirit of Jesus in a way that I hadn't ever done before. Because it's also dealing with the struggles that he went through along his.
Yeah.
He didn't come in as a perfected master. He was questioning every single tradition that he encountered in India, Palestine, Tibet, and Buddhists and the Jains, and his own struggles with women, with lust, with questions about what is my purpose here. So that human aspect is also very important, because people sometimes forget that. It's like, this is God and this is human. And there's a huge chasm between them. But no, we are both. And that's the gift that we're given. So you can express that quality of being divinely human and humanly in this world.
Well, the Catholic Church kind of created the Bible around the year 356. That Emperor Constantine told his historian, whose name was Eusebius, he said, we need to come up with a religion, so gather these teachings, but we have to make this, we've got to appeal to the Romans too. So, they have all these gods, so we have to make Jesus equal to the gods, and so on, but there is a video you've probably seen put out by the government of India about, they have the historical records of Jesus in India, that he went to different universities and he attended the 4th Buddhist ecumenical conference that was held in Kashmir. And there's even a coin, like a silver coin. This isn't it. I wish I had it, but it has the picture of Jesus on it.
Really?
To commemorate the ecumenical conference, at which he spoke. He was the featured speaker. So the Buddhists regarded him definitely as a, enlightened Buddhist teacher.
And there was a prophecy that 500 years after the death of the Buddha, the next Metteyya would arise. And it would be to unite the tribes. So it was about uniting the Hebrew tribes, but also uniting the tribes of humanity. And guess who that was? So in response to that, his parents had to leave Kashmir and go across to Palestine, give birth to him. In some traditions, it's not just one, but twins. So it was Jesus and his twin brother, Thomas. And so they were born in response to the prophecy. And then the Tibetan lamas and wise men came looking for the Tulku and following the star and discovering, yes, this is the one that we've been looking for. And then at 13 or 14 years old, he was invited back to study in the monasteries and learn from their traditions. But so much of this has been forgotten.
Sure. What I find is people like to cling to dogma, because there's a security in it, that you belong to this particular path, and then you don't have to think about anything anymore. It's all set for you, So, there is a place for that. The three jewels in Buddhism: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the Sangha is very important. It's the fellowship of other beings on the same path as yourself. And that's pretty much disappeared in Mount Shasta. But I see people do cling to a particular guru or a particular path simply to have that fellowship of other like-minded people,
Right. So I'm curious, Peter. I haven't really lived in Mount Shasta for the past 20 years. What is the status of the I Am teachings of Saint Germain and the tradition that you and I had been?
Yeah. Well, the actual Saint Germain Foundation is sort of dying out, because young people don't want to be a part of it. Like, I know someone that was at one of their gatherings recently. Well, they were taking the fundamentals, I guess, so they could become members. And the guy put his hand on the back of his wife, and they scolded him and said, "You are on sacred ground. Men are not allowed to touch women here." It was his wife, And I think he had put his hand on the back of a friend who was there too, and they were shocked, So that's not mastery. That's not going to go over, So the very, and again, you have to wear the right color on the right day and all that stuff, So it's become very, very dogmatic, They still preserve the teachings. They publish the books, the I Am books, but I don't see people joining it, young people. And then there are people that were in the Summit Lighthouse under Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and they have moved to Mount Shasta, and they have a very nice group. What Saint Germain has had me do is bring the Eastern teachings in with the Western, the meditation part, learning to, work on yourself. None of those teachers taught self-observation, you know what I mean? Right. And how to work with the human part of yourself. they didn't teach that. They just said, decree it out of existence or something, it doesn't work. So now, I mean, a lot of the teachings people are giving here are very phenomena oriented, like they're teaching people to open portals. You wave your hands around and open a portal, or they're talking about going inside the mountain, or they're speaking in tongues and things, or a lot of emphasis on channeling stuff, who you were in the past. I don't find it spiritual at all. It's to me sad.
Well, I'm reminded of what Alice Bailey used to say about glamour.
Oh, glamour. Yeah, I remember that.
And that seems to be so commonplace these days. So people don't, there's no discernment of, true humility and service. And then this idea of glamour, I am such and such, and identifications. And
so I saw some people, they want to know what the next step is. So I teach them basic Vipassana, watching the breath, stilling the mind, and then observing the thoughts and so on like that, and they said, well, how long do I need to do that? And I said, well, if you went on a 3-year retreat, that would be a good beginning. And they go, 3 years? Are you out of your mind? They want a weekend or something.
Instant, yeah.
Instant, yeah. I, spent $500 on a weekend retreat, so I must be enlightened now, so.
Right. Right. So what are you teaching? Like, do you have classes?
No, I've sort of doing planetary work, that there's some days when there might be 4 or 5 hours where nothing is planned, nobody's coming, I don't have any commitments. And during that time, I will go into deep meditation, do work for the planet, sending violet fire, like to the Ukraine or something like that. Or, calling on the masters to enlighten the heads of all world governments. And this has been a big part of my activity over the last year.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I mean, and I've seen some amazing results. I've received some confirmation. There's a part of the human mind that thinks I'm doing all this prayer, but is anything really happening? And so I've seen some things happen that were a confirmation of that. Like even a week ago, I was house sitting for a friend, and he has these beautiful 100-foot tall pine trees around his house. And I was blessing the pine trees. And then I walked in a circle around his yard saying, I'm going to bless Gaia, Mother Earth. I call on the ascended masters to bless Mother Earth. And I walked 3 times around the yard with my hands out, imagining light going into the earth. Well, the next morning, this stone appeared that's like totally smooth. There are no rocks around in the yard, and at first I thought maybe some kid, a neighbor, threw it over or something, but there are no kids around there in the neighborhood. And then I thought, well, a bird dropped it. That's impossible. It's really heavy. And finally I realized, I went out and picked it up, and it's right where I go out every morning. And I know 8 o'clock at night, I looked out there was nothing, the deck was clear. Then at 6 o'clock in the morning, I look out the window, and there is this stone, and it had a face on it. But the rest of it was smooth. And I finally got the message, this is Mother Nature thanking you for the work. Mother Nature saying you were doing something. It's not your imagination. And this is a sign,
Peter, for me, living in Mount Shasta, the most important piece of it was the connections with the nature kingdoms. The elemental beings, the nature.
Yeah.
To me, that's what mastery is about, to learn to connect with the nature kingdoms, with the elemental species, with invisible beings that we, that for us have become mythological. And that also is a part of planetary healing. I mean, because we're bridging all these different dimensions and worlds, and we're all part of Gaia. And humans tend to think, no, we are top of this ladder of creation. But all these are part of the same web of life. And that communication, that ability to make a bridge is very much a part of mastery for me.
We're this little slice of heaven. There's this little slice of heaven. We're just respectful on this land, and I know they know that about us, and
right.
I talk to them, and and you just see the fireflies at night, and just like when you're children, that's what children are, just so close to the earth, and all these spirits and nature beings, they're present, and they need the recognition. They're the ones that make the plants and garden grow, and so.
Sure, we wouldn't have anything to eat if it weren't for the nature spirits, So it's so good to pray for them. I mean, not just the ones in your yard, but all of them,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a few years ago, I read an article about the bees being endangered. So I went in my shrine room and I did a prayer. I asked for the bee spirits to be blessed, and I asked the masters to help them. And then I walked outside and a bee came and landed right in the center of my chest.
Thanking you.
I looked down at it. That has never happened, that a bee landed on me and it's for quite a while. It was looking me in the eye, and I was looking at it, and its little antennas were going, and I felt that bee was definitely sent by the bee diva to thank me,
I love that.
Yeah.
Peter, why do you think people are only shallowly interested or expecting a lot of return or looking for phenomena when it comes to spirituality instead of having real sincerity? What is that? And I'm just curious, what can we do to maybe share spirituality in a way that is inviting to that type of person? Or how do we interface with that need in our that is arising?
Well, I've talked to a lot of these young people, and a common theme is they seem to grow up without love. Both parents are working, or maybe at the age of 2, they were given a cell phone or an iPad or something, and the parents thought that'll keep them busy for a while. And they never felt that unconditional love from their parents.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, and so then they grow up and they're trying to find it, but they don't know where. If you haven't, I heard a long time ago, to be successful in life, I mean, to be a real person, you have to have been loved by somebody, even if it wasn't your mother. Like in my case, it was my grandmother, that I felt that unconditional love from her, and then I had a dog for a while that gave me unconditional love, or it could be a foster parent or an aunt or something like that. But if you haven't had some kind of love early in life, it's very difficult. So people, there's a sort of a wound there, and they try to fill that emptiness with a role somehow, with a sense of importance, like I come from the 8th dimension or something like that, but it still doesn't really work. It doesn't create that love, That's actually a role of the guru also, is to share unconditional love with the disciple, you know. So
His presence.
It's the root cause of addiction is seeking the love.
you know, to block out the pain somehow.
Of
So
not,
unfortunately, some of these people find acceptance with these non-physical beings, you know, which just use them then, you know, some type of entity. So it's very sad. And you know, I read, it's actually, I think it talks about this in Karl Marx's books, that the way to bring communism into a society is to destroy the culture. First, you know, destroy the family, and then destroy the culture. So the state becomes the family, you know, or the particular group that you identify with is your family.
yeah. Have you watched The Great Awakening that came out by Mickey Willis?
Mm,
That's what they talk about. That's what I sent to you.
yeah.
So Peter, one question, and you all ask ourselves the same question over and over again.
Yeah.
So given all the outer conditions on this earth right now, where do you see us going? And if you're moving towards the Satyuga, the age of light, you know, when is this happening? How do we see it coming into manifestation? What is our role in this as a collective human consciousness?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, you know, and I'm kind of hesitant to talk about it because it freaks some people out, you know. But you know, there are hints in the Bible, and who some of those great prophets were, they had glimpses of the future, you know. And there's some of those phrases like there will be a new heaven and a new earth, because the old heaven and the old earth will pass away. And then there's statements like, I believe it's Jesus talking about there will come a time when two men will be on the roof and one will be taken. And two people will be in the field working and one will be taken. Two women will be grinding grain, one will be taken. And if you are on the roof, do not go back into the house to get anything. And they said, the Son of Man will come in the clouds of heaven in great power and glory. Now, it would be interesting to know what the original phrase that was translated as the clouds of heaven, you know, or even the Son of Man, where did that come from? But, you know, having lived in Mount Shasta, you know the kind of clouds that we have come around the mountain that look like spaceships, you know. In fact, I've even seen some of them have portholes in them. And so I have been having a lot of contact with what we call extraterrestrials, you know. They're really just our ancestors. I mean, we all came from somewhere, you know. We didn't evolve out of the ocean, or we didn't evolve out of slime or something like that. We came here to the earth from someplace, and we came on spaceships. That doesn't mean all the spaceships that visit Earth are good, you know, but it's very interesting. So the clouds of heaven I perceive as our brothers and sisters coming to help us. And it's very interesting that in the last week, there have been congressional hearings about aliens and UFOs. That's not happening by accident. You know, the government denied that for 50 years and said there are no aliens, there are no spaceships, it's all a lie. Well, now it turns out they were lying. They've known for a long time. They've been interfacing with them, you know, except they're trying to make them out to be bad guys.
Right.
And Werner von Braun said this a long time ago, that the government would use an alien invasion to declare martial law, you know, like the lockdown we had, that they will use something to scare people. And they are moving rapidly in that direction. So they are basically announcing that there are UFOs and they're not good, you know, and that we have to be on our guard. That's the gist of what they're saying, you know.
And the next step then will be the scenario of the alien invasion and then lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. See, the military has UFOs that they've created. They've back engineered this technology. In fact, I mean, I'm hesitant to say it. I knew a woman who was a psychiatrist, and she treated military people that had had abduction experiences, you know, very unpleasant. And she discovered that these were experiences created by our own military. These were not off-planet beings. So that's what they want people to believe. And I know people even here in Mount Shasta that are afraid of aliens, anything to do with UFOs, because they've read about these abductions, you know. But I have been having personally experiences over the last year and over the last 6 months, many of them, where I get this ringing in my ears just around bedtime, and they say, and I go to sleep immediately, you know, no trouble going to sleep. Then I'm on board the spacecraft, and we go up over the North Pole into the interior of the Earth. And it's not dark, there's an inner sun. So basically, this is a higher frequency Earth, what you call Shambhala, you know, or the new heaven and the new Earth. And it's very much like the surface. There's trees and grass, beautiful flowers, and there's no pollution, there's no warfare, people get along, and it's very beautiful. And I see people there who I've known in this life who have passed on, and they're alive and well there, you know. And I've had many experiences now where I'm taken there, and I really feel that's the next step. But that doesn't mean life will go on the 3D Earth, the surface of the Earth. And I feel that we will be coming back to help the people on the surface, you know. That's where the Bodhisattva vow comes in. A lot of people, you know, when you start on the spiritual path, I want to get enlightened and merge, you know, with the oneness and be in samadhi for eternity, you know. But the thing is, once you get up there and you see the suffering on the earth, most people want to go back. That's what happened to me. Saint Germain offered me the chance to leave at one time. And then I saw the suffering, my heart went out. I just said, I can't leave. And he said, you made the right choice, you know. So I feel that we will not be abandoning humanity, but we'll be working from a higher level, you know. See, right now I have invitations to go to 6 countries, from South Korea to Norway to India. But travel is such a hassle now. But if I had my little spacecraft here, I could hop in and, you know, just beam down wherever I wanted, you know. So,
well, I do think that part of this shift is the veils between the worlds start getting thinner and thinner.
yeah,
And part of this is also the veil between the surface civilizations and the inner earth civilizations, and also the elephant tribes, the Shi, the Tuatha De Danann, and all these tribes that have been living invisibly to us humans. But if we expand our range of senses, they're right there.
exactly.
So these veils start getting thinner, they'll show up in our midst. They've always been here, but they'll reveal themselves and communicate with us. And we need to be in a place where we are not a threat to them. So
exactly. Yeah, it's funny. There's all these people scared of the aliens. I think the aliens should be scared of coming here. In fact, we've shot a number of them down, with radar and things like that, So they have quite a bit to fear from humanity also. But, you talk about other types of beings. What about the Nagas in India? Who are they? That's a.
Because I think I've been writing about this just in the last week, along with the Apsaras and the Kinaris and Kinaras. There are many, many different tribes, beings who are parallel with humans, operate in different dimensions, who can become visible to us if they choose to be. Be open to that. It may be that they came from another extraterrestrial civilization. It may be that they were part of the evolution of this planet, but parallel to our human dimension. So my sense is that they're very much a part of our evolution at this stage. The Nagas also are the serpent energies, not the reptilian kind, which people confuse that with sometimes.
Oh, what kind?
The reptilian kind, which.
Oh yeah, no, not the reptilian. Yeah.
But the dragons, the ancient dragons, who are here to support evolution, support Mother Earth, who are here to open up Kundalini channels, and to open up when the prophecies talk about the 3 days of darkness, it's referring to the shift and reversal of the Earth's magnetic fields. And so they're also here to support that and to somehow reconnect the soul with with the lower bodies after we go through the shift. Because part of the initial phase, according to these prophecies, when we go through the magnetic reversal, is that the 5 bodies, the 5 koshas, will just fragment because they're held together through magnetic fields. And after that, the Nagas are part of the races who are here to help us recombobulate ourselves, for the soul to reconnect in a new way, to activate new DNA potentials. So this will be the.
Do you feel that some Nagas are in human bodies?
Possibly. What do you think?
Incarnate is that? Well, in ancient Egypt, some of these pharaohs, they have the serpent coming out of the center of their forehead.
Right.
And I met a yogi in the Himalayas who said he worked with people that were the serpent people. So I think that many of the Nagas did go into human form. In fact, why do they talk about the Kundalini as a serpent?
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating, huh?
Think about possibilities.
That's great that you're opening people's eyes to these other realities, So.
Yeah. So it's so great that we're here at a time when this can happen. When all this wisdom is being revealed again.
What advice would Kiara or Peter or Shannon, advice would you offer, or guidance for people that are trying to open themselves up to, I guess, beneficial energy, or I'm not sure how to phrase the question exactly, but how do people know that it's not just their imagination, or what's a safe way to open up to those type of things within yourself, whether they're energies or experiences or.
Well, I can say something that you could relate to as a yogi or yoga teacher. I was an atheist the early part of my life, probably till I was 21. or even 22. My father was a scientist. He said, don't believe anything that you haven't tested and proven for yourself, and I tried praying to God saying, if you're real, please show me. And I didn't see anything. I mean, I did have respect and admiration for nature. So there obviously was a consciousness there, but I just couldn't relate to the concept of God, and then I started doing hatha yoga when I was living in New York City, just for my health, and all of a sudden, the very first class, I started feeling energy in my body, shooting down into my legs and stuff. And I went, whoa, there really is something beyond the physical plane, and that first class really awakened me. And I went to a metaphysical bookstore and I said, what's your best book on yoga? And they gave me the book by, I think it was it by M on Ramakrishna, basically on, but either Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. And right away, things started opening up, And as I did hatha yoga, I continued with it. Then I started having consciousness awakening experiences, So, and then I went to India, hung out with Neem Karoli Baba, but it was hatha yoga though that got me started. When feeling is believing, when you really experience it, I like the meditation that Saint Germain gave in the first chapter in Unveiled Mysteries. He said, imagine a sun in the center of your chest. And, the essence of that sun is love. But however you relate to it, just imagine it's expanding through your body and, out into the room, into the whole world. So you become a sun. And you just keep doing that. And it gets stronger and stronger. And then you start to really connect with your source, That's the basic, very simple meditation. Or like those monks at Mount Athos, the heart of Christ is in me. Meditate on that. I am one with the heart of Christ. Just feel that, you can say it silently to yourself and you'll feel something. There are a lot of people coming to Shasta now doing group sessions using mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. And, I think these substances definitely have their place, but the problem is people are becoming dependent on them. That they want to be doing it every weekend or something, instead of, like Neem Karoli Baba said, it's like window shopping. You can see what's in the window, but you can't have it. Because you have to develop that yourself, But I think it does have its place. In fact, for mental conditions, people have been using microdosing to help heal those wounds, those inner wounds,
Yeah, they have a place in terms of releasing the hold of the ego, because then you start breaking out of this, very strong boundary that we've built subconsciously around the heart, around the mind. And that starts to break apart using mushrooms, but then integrating it with the rest of the system. That's the hard part, that's the hard, that's walking your truth.
Yeah. That's the practicality piece. Like wake up in the morning and make your bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Peter, that's, when you're describing some of these people that are coming to Mount Shasta, I'm thinking they're coming and they're looking for phenomena and they're looking for these like almost like circus-like experiences, like a carnival experience. And I think that they're misguided, because really, like you said earlier, they're looking for a deep sense of love and belonging. And I just pray that there are elders like yourself and others. Of course, the Ascended Masters are with us to guide them to really find a true experience, you know, not something that's just a fantasy in their mind, but a really something that's practical, something that can actually help them to exist in this world in a more successful way. Successful in the sense that they're harmonized with, you know, with divinity within themselves. And so I know a lot of people are looking for that. Shannon and I'm sure you and Kiara, because we're in that world of seeking truth, you know, or being in the light of truth, we encounter people that are in need of that,
Sure, sure.
that, you know, true guidance, a true experience.
Great.
Hopefully this, you know, this conversation can support people like that, you know, just making one step on their journey. And then the next step, and then the next step.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, people make the path so complicated, but it just seems really so simple, you know, just the self-inquiry, you know, and meditating on the light. So
Yeah, I mean, David and I have found the more simply that we live, the happier we are.
yeah,
And then our path just continues to become revealed to us.
Yeah.
I was Kiara just today, you know, for so long we're in, you know, this place in Massachusetts, and I've just been trying to get back to California. And recently it's just dawned on me, you are where you are. This is great. Where I am is great. And it's been that way all along, but it's somehow it's aligning that I just am more embodied right now. And this is exactly where I'm meant to be. And
Yeah, embodiment is the acceptance of this moment and being willing to serve, you know, from that space.
Yeah.
Serve the whole, serve the planet, serve each other.
Just being happy, you're rendering a service to the planet, sending out good energy, you know. I'm sure you're helping many people with the yoga also, David. So
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's amazing just to get energy moving and breathe.
yeah,
That kind of depressing mood or ruminating thoughts. I mean, once you just get everything circulating, it moves pretty quickly. And there's real power in the group setting. You know, once you get a magnetism going, especially, you know, if you're, in my case, I'm attuned with Paramahansa Yogananda ji, and I feel that it's his presence that's coming through. And boy, when he's in class and when the magnetism of the ascended masters is flowing, it's amazing how much people can transform, you know, beyond the physical shape they're putting their body into, but just being in tune with grace and relaxing and just softening into that grace and surrendering. And I find people that have no necessarily spiritual inclination in the way that, you know, someone might measure spiritual inclination. The average person can have a very meaningful experience, even if it's that they're no longer in a upset mood, or still that innate wisdom in those postures. And even if just a tiny little bit of prana starts moving in the body, then a long period of time, I've watched a lot of people graduate from you know, and even maybe this is a nice way to tie into those people that are looking for the phenomenal experiences. Maybe that's just their, you know, they're on that stepping stone, and one day they'll have a deeper desire or a deeper craving for something more true, something that really nourishes them on a deeper level. And I think what's nice about that perspective is everybody's allowed to be where they are, and, you know, just take their natural course of and
I'll share a story with you that I think you appreciate. I have been doing Hatha Yoga for about 6 months, and reading about Ramakrishna. And I was living in New York City, and a friend invited me to his farm upstate New York, and I wanted to do something to help him out. And he said, well, if you want to do some work around the farm, the horses have been in the barn all winter, and their stall needs, the manure has to be shoveled out. So he gave me a pitchfork, and I went down there and I start shoveling the manure out the window of the barn. There was one of those doors that has 2 levels, and one of them opened, and I was shoveling the manure out. And I went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. There was no me there at all. It was just absolute light, bliss, and the sound, the cosmic Om. And there's nothing that can describe that. I don't know how long I was there, but I came back, the shovel was still, the pitchfork was still in the air, and the horse was looking at me. It turned around, it knew something had happened because it was staring at me. And even to this day, that was one of the most profound spiritual experiences I've ever had, And the rest of that weekend, I shoveled manure like crazy, hoping that would happen again, but it didn't, But it just shows it could happen washing dishes or, who knows, whatever, changing diapers maybe, I don't know. You just never know when something like that could happen.
Yeah, I think as we're going through these vibrational changes, this will happen more and more spontaneously for people.
Sure. It's nice just to be shown what's there, then then you realize you still need to work toward that yourself, But
The great mystery.
yeah, it is.
Mystery of mastery.
Yeah. Well, we should probably wrap this up. We could go on talking all night, probably.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Peter.
thank you,
Yeah,
Peter.
pleasure. We could talk again sometime too, if you like. So.
That sounds great. Yeah. So I'll be returning to India in a couple of weeks.
Do you have a group there in Bangalore?
I don't actually. That's my hermitage.
Ah, I understand.
Writing. So that's what I'm doing these days, just mostly writing.
Okay, well, many
Good.
blessings.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Namaste.
Thanks.